Welcome to the King's Table, a podcast out of King's Hill Church in Boston where we seek to elevate the Bible over opinion, answering the questions you have. I'm your host, Jonathan Mosley. Today's question is, what place does Santa have during the Christmas season? Enjoy. Well, this is a great question to close out season 3 of our podcast with. We'll start back in early January, but it is true. Christmas is upon us. And this is a pretty common question. But let me just say that this is not an episode giving a command to families whether or not they should ditch Santa. Every family's going to have to make that decision for themselves. And while you'll see where I land on this, there isn't a cookie-cutter approach. But this is an episode dedicated to helping us as Christians live out the command the Apostle Paul gives in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, which is where he says, "So whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God." So this, whatever you do for the glory of God, includes now how we think about Santa and how we bring him into the holiday season if we choose to do so. Because I wonder how many Christians are actually going against this command because they're not at all thinking about how to glorify God in their celebration of Santa. So what I don't want for any family is to adopt a practice from our culture just because everyone else is doing it. No, in our traditions, we are to glorify God, which means he's to be made much of. And so naturally, there are concerns of the modern day Santa that are at odds with glorifying God. It's not to say that they can't be overcome, but they're not going to be overcome without intentionality or mindfulness or clear communication. So I'm going to offer up my concerns around Santa Claus, and you'll quickly realize that we don't encourage belief in Santa at the Mosley household, but that doesn't mean that you can't be Christ-centered in the ways you do bring Santa into your traditions if that's the route you want to take. So just to give an example, I know a family that's told their child that there's a secret to Santa, and when they feel like they know the secret, to let the parents know. So when that time comes and the child guesses the secret being that the parents are indeed Santa Claus, well, that's when the parents will share the story of the historical St. Nicholas, how he was a man who lost his parents at a young age and used his inheritance to help the poor and the sick. In fact, it was St. Nicholas's love for Jesus that fueled his giving. And so the parents will tell the child how they've adopted this love for gift giving. And because Jesus loves giving in secret, they as parents wanted to bless their kid all these years not seeking credit for the gifts. And they'll tell their child, since now they've been brought in on the secret, well, as a family now, they're going to seek out together how they can bless others in secret all the time, but especially during the Christmas season. Now, that's a Christ-centered approach to adopting Santa into their family tradition. So it can be done. So I wanted to share that point first, that there is a way in which we can be Christ-centered and God-glorifying in the ways that we incorporate Santa into our traditions. But let me share my concerns now. I'll ask them in the form of a question. So 3 questions to ponder as you decide what place Santa will have in your tradition. So here's question 1. Question 1 to ponder. Would I rather the gifts underneath the Christmas tree be tied to the gospel of Santa or the gospel of Jesus? You know, it's no secret, the gospel of Santa. In fact, it's best proclaimed in the song, "Santa Claus is Coming to Town." And you know the lyrics. I'm not going to sing them because I have a really bad singing voice, but hear the lyrics, right? You better watch out, better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Or to keep going, Santa here, he's making a list, he's checking it twice. He's going to find out if you're naughty or nice. That's the message of Santa. And I'm encouraging belief in Santa the way culture tells me to celebrate him when I'm telling my kids all month long in December, hey, listen, you better be good. Otherwise, you're going to get coal in your stockings. Hey, you better not disobey because Santa is watching you. Now, is that the message that I want to communicate to my kid? Because how does that fare with the gospel of Jesus? Because that message is radically different. Jesus gave us the gift of himself even while we were still sinners, Romans 5:8. There's no grace in the gospel of Santa. And as a result, that message that's being sung in songs, that's being portrayed in movies, it's actually anti-gospel of Jesus. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, saying that the message of Santa is gospel, you might be saying, well, that's kind of strong language. But think about it. It is a message that calls for belief in Santa, and it is a message that calls for action. Do good so that you'll receive favor from old Saint Nick. So here's the concern. Are we allowing the message, the gospel of Santa, to somehow water down the gospel of Jesus Christ? So that's my first concern. A question to ponder. Second question to ponder is this. How will I make sure that if I do bring in Santa in my traditions, that I am not sharing the glory of God with Santa? Now, someone might say, whoa. I'm not asking my kids to bow down and worship Santa. Well, fair point. But glory in Hebrew means weight. So maybe we can think about it like this. What weight are you giving to God versus what weight are you giving to Santa? Because we are willing, if we're honest, we are willing to give ourselves to the watching of movies that have Santa as the hero of the story. We're willing to listen to music that almost deifies Santa. We're willing to stand in long lines to sit on Santa's lap. Now, that's attention, that's time, even affection. In other words, with the time, the affection, the attention, we are giving weight to Santa during the Christmas season. And yet, Isaiah 42:8 says, I am the Lord, that is my name, and I will not give my glory to anyone else. And so, why would we direct the attention and the time and even affection of our kids away from God during this season and onto someone who's make-believe? Christmas should be a time where Jesus not only takes center stage, but all of the stage. How are we making sure that the glory of Jesus is not being shared with Santa? So that's my second question to ponder. And here's my third question to ponder. Could it be that as we talk about Santa, that this is a potential stumbling block that could be avoided? You know, the call to action for Santa and the call to action for Jesus is pretty similar. If you think about it, right? Believe though you can't see. Just have faith. Now, let's be fair. As kids grow up, will it affect them at all when you tell them, hey, I was just kidding about Santa. He's not real. I know I've asked you to believe in him all these years, but I was just kidding. But hey, when I talk about Jesus, I am serious about believing in him. Yes, I know it's like Santa. You can't see him either. But Jesus is for real. Now, will it affect them in all honesty? Maybe not. Right? Like, will it make it harder for them to believe in Jesus after they've been fooled by Santa? Maybe, but also maybe not. The answer is we don't know. It didn't for me, right? I believed in Santa, and now I believe in Jesus. But at the same time, why risk putting an unnecessary obstacle to someone's belief in Jesus? Listen, the way our world is going, the way our culture is trending, there's going to be enough stumbling blocks to follow Jesus wholeheartedly. Why would we want to put a possible additional one when it comes to calling our kids to believe in Santa? So those are my concerns. Right? I'm concerned that for us as Christians, that it's very possible that we're just mindlessly going along with culture without giving any sort of mental effort or physical exertion to glorifying God if we do choose to bring Santa in our traditions. We are to glorify God in all that we do, including how we think about Santa. How are we making sure that our lives aren't for a season promoting the gospel of Santa and taking away the glory of Jesus? Now, something that has been brought up as it relates to why Santa for Christmas is this word, wonder. The magic of having Christmas gifts suddenly appear under the tree, the lights on trees and houses, the cookies eaten during the night before Christmas, the milk that's being sipped. Right? All of this brings a sense of wonder. And someone might say to me, Well, wouldn't foregoing celebrating Santa rob a child of this wonder? Like, why would you want to do that to a kid? Well, there is something to be said about stirring up wonder in a child's heart. It is true that wonder comes easy to a child. That's a beautiful thing. It reminds me of this article. There's an article that C.S. Lewis wrote back in the day, and it was titled this, that sometimes fairy tales say best what's to be said. I love that title. And if you read that article, you would find that C.S. Lewis articulates how sometimes fairy tales capture the imagination and give birth to feelings and point beyond itself. And who doesn't agree with him after reading something like Chronicles of Narnia? Right? Like the reason why that story moves so many of us is because it points to another world that seems to be out of reach, but yet it stirs within us a desire we want to be fulfilled. There's something about fairy tales that get to adventure and suspense and tragedy and triumph, and it moves the soul. And those stories, those fairy tales, they stir up these desires that often go suppressed. So that's a fair point. But what if we as believers use this window of time, and I'm thinking about post-Thanksgiving to New Year, where these desires come to the surface, desires like harmony, desires like peace, desires like wanting restfulness, desires like wanting to enjoy another world beyond the one we inhabit. Well, what if we as believers use this window of time and capitalized on this season by pointing people to Jesus? Not the North Pole, not elves in green suits, not Santa Claus, because there is something otherworldly about Christmas. We don't need Santa to stir up wonder. You know, one of the rallying points behind the Protestant Reformation was this phrase, in Christ alone. And I hold on to it here because there's enough wonder found in the incarnation. I don't need to look elsewhere. There's so much wonder as it relates to the story of Christmas. I don't need another story to go to. Because what's way more spectacular than Santa Claus slipping down through chimneys to visit us in secret is a God who took on flesh and blood, born as a baby, who became Emmanuel, God with us. You know, when it comes to that point about wonder and someone saying, doesn't it rob a child of wonder if you don't celebrate Santa? Well, I don't think so. For our house, there is excitement and anticipation around activities like cookie decorating and gingerbread building. I don't need Santa Claus to build excitement and anticipation. Our girls love this tradition every year. And can we not do this until the glory of God by bringing people over from our church and embody how Christ's coming has ultimately made us family? Yes, there is wonder in fixing up the Christmas tree and in the sightseeing of Christmas lights around the neighborhood. But can we not make this Christ-centered, right? As lights adorn a house, as ornaments adorn a tree. Can we not talk about how the coming of Jesus has brought light and beauty into the world? Well, what about the revamping and rearranging of our home? Can we not answer our kids when they ask why we do this? Can we not answer them with something like, well, we remember that the inn that was sought for Jesus' birth had no room in it. And so during this time of the year, as we think about Jesus' coming, we don't want to make the same mistake. We allow our homes to change during this month to testify that indeed Jesus is welcome here. Well, what about gifts under the tree? There is no doubt that wonder is awakened in a child when they wake up to find presents under the tree Christmas morning. But wouldn't they still feel that wonder, even if you said you as the parents put those gifts there? I think they would. Why does Santa have to be the one that gets the credit? In our home, as we think about gifts under the tree and our kids waking up to the wonder of presents being there, for us, it's going to be Jesus that gets the credit. If our kids ask us, how did those presents get there? Well, our answer is going to be something like, well, there's something about God's mysterious love that made those presents appear. And as they get older, we'll share with them that Jesus' love for us spurs us on to love them, which on Christmas Day looks like lavishing them with gifts. So yes, the why behind the gifts appearing and how they got there, it's ultimately rooted in the love of God. Throughout Israel's traditions, there were specific instructions given to them. For example, Israel was to dedicate the firstborn of their sons by taking a donkey or a lamb, and they were to kill it by breaking its neck. And you read about why they do this in Exodus 13, verses 14 and 15. It says, in the future, when your son asks, what does this mean? You are to tell him, with a mighty hand, the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. This is why I sacrificed to the Lord the firstborn of every male of every womb, that I might redeem all the firstborn of my sons. In other words, there's going to come a time when a child is seeing dad sacrifice the firstborn of its flock. And that child is going to say, Dad, why do we do this? What's the point of all that? And then the parents give the answer. And the answer is rooted in what God has done in delivering them. There's actually many other examples where God gives instructions for Israel so that when a child or a son asks why that's going on, it gives the parents an opportunity to retell the story of God's miraculous and mighty power in saving them from the Egyptians. I share that because all of that to say, when a kid asks a parent why they do something, like, why do we hang stockings? Why do we put up lights? Why do we make cookies? Why do we put gifts under the tree? What's their answer going to be? Is it going to be, I don't know, I haven't really thought about it? Or is it going to be, I don't know, we just do it? Or, I don't know, everyone else does it. Will it be that answer we give our kids? Or will it be rooted in something that makes much of God? What I'm hoping for is that we would have Christ-centered, Christ-exalted whys behind the traditions of Christmas. That whatever we do, eating or drinking, in our traditions of Christmas, if they include Santa or not, that Jesus would be made much of. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's discussion around Santa Claus. And I also hope you've enjoyed season 3 of our podcast. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. If you'd like more resources or information about Kings Hill Church, you can visit us online at www.kingshillboston.com.